Welcome to this special edition of the Habs Culture Stanley Cup Playoff prediction episode. Now, this is definitely a very highly anticipated episode. Liam and I, over the last couple of years, have made these types of episodes before. Now, there's a reason we don't talk about them that much on the channel because there's no way that we've ever gotten them remotely close to correct. However, now that we've added another member to the group, we are increasing our chances of taking or of making the perfect bracket. So now all the matchups are set for the 2025-26 playoffs. Definitely some exciting ones. Definitely a lot up in the air. Some things came down to the last game, especially in that Pacific division. Some things were set in stone really, really early, whether it was Colorado clinching the President's Trophy on April 10th, or whether it was the Dallas-Minnesota series that was always going to be a playoff matchup. But nonetheless, we're going to get right into it. We're going to give our first round predictions, and we're also going to share our screen. So if you're watching on YouTube, you will be able to see titled our Habs Culture or HT's Perfect Bracket. So we're going to go matchup by matchup here, and then we're going to give our consensus bracket based on each of our individual picks. So we're going to start with the East, and we're going to start with the Buffalo Sabres, who have home ice advantage over the Boston Bruins. They won the Atlantic Division with 109 points, and they actually ended not only the league's longest playoff drought, but the longest playoff drought in North American pro sports. And they go up against a Boston team that is very familiar with the playoffs, where they went with a .67 points percentage after December 27th. So clearly this is a very interesting matchup, but all of us are in agreement that we have the Buffalo Sabres winning this matchup in 7 games. So it's enough talking from me. I'm going to throw this on to you, Liam. Sabres, Boston. Give me the rundown and why you took the Sabres in 7.
Yeah, I got Sabres in 7. They're one of the hottest teams in the NHL since December, I want to say. Very deep lineup, amazing defensive core. I have them in 7. I think Boston puts up a dogfight against this Buffalo Sabres team because Swayman has been absolutely unreal, and you can never count out David Pastrnak to just take over a series. But I have Buffalo in 7, taking down the Boston Bruins and winning their first playoff series in God knows how long.
Yeah, Sabres in 7, but I think it's going to be more of a battle than Sabres fans think. Jeremy Swayman is one of the only goalies here in the playoffs that you could guarantee that he'll be the starter no matter how bad he plays game 1, game 2, game 3. And just like you said, Liam, David Pastrnak, one of the best players in the league, has been for multiple years now. And I think him and Swayman steal a few games, but at the end of the day, the Buffalo Sabres win their first playoff series since 2011.
It might be. And my only thing that I'll add in is, does Buffalo have a starter for game 1? Is it Lyon or is it Ukko Pekka-Luukkonen? I'm not sure who they're going to run with, but I feel like they're just going to ride with someone who's hot.
I think UPL's been hot recently. I think they go with him. And I think the gap between him and Swayman is that big that I do see Swayman winning them a few games. But yeah, that's definitely something to keep an eye on.
I think it's a really interesting matchup because on paper, based on this season, it's clearly the Buffalo Sabres that would have the upper hand in this matchup. But you just know that the Boston Bruins are going to make a fight out of this, especially at home at the TD Garden. So definitely an interesting matchup. And I feel like, in my opinion, and we won't get into it right now, but this might be the series where the Sabres peak in these playoffs, because I feel like it becomes a bit of a dogfight past that first round. But we'll move on to the next matchup, which we discussed in depth in our last episode. So make sure to go check it out if you're interested specifically in the Montreal Canadiens, or if you're a Tampa Bay Lightning fan and you want to maybe see what we had to say about that matchup. But we're not going to go too in depth here, other than the fact that, again, another consensus pick from myself, Liam, and Jonah, the Montreal Canadiens are going to take this series. I have them winning in 6. Jonah and Liam both have them winning in 7. Now, Jonah, we talked about this a lot, but why do you have the Montreal Canadiens winning this series?
No bias involved at all. maybe just a little bit. But I think the Habs have been a better team since the Olympic break. We went over the records the other day on our podcast. And yeah, I think it goes 7 mainly because the goaltending favors Tampa Bay. Kucherov has not been at his best for a while now. So I think if the Habs can continue to shut them down, they'll be able to win the series. But the home ice advantage definitely favors Tampa Bay. So I think it's going to be a dogfight. I think it's going to be similar to how the last 2 games have been. There have been a lot of battles, a lot of fights, but I think the Habs overcome this series in Tampa Bay on Game 7. What do you think, Liam?
Winning Game 7 on the road is going to be an absolute movie, but we saw it in 2021 when the Habs beat Toronto in Toronto, albeit there was the COVID lockout, so there weren't any fans there to watch. But regardless, they've done it on the road in a Game 7, and they're going to do it again in Tampa Bay, sending Tampa back to the lobby.
We know what Kucherov had to say about the Habs after their Stanley Cup Finals was last series versus the Vegas Golden Knights. You know, Suzuki and Caulfield, who are in their primes now, want to disappoint Kucherov, and I think they do it.
I also think it's worth noting that last episode we obviously talked about this matchup in depth. One thing that we didn't really speak about, and Liam, I remember you maybe brought it up just in passing about how good the power play for the Tampa Bay Lightning can be. And the truth is that it can be, but this season 14th in the league on the power play, and since the Olympic break 24th in the league on the power play. Obviously dealing with a few injuries from time to time, but maybe it's that consistency that they haven't been able to find, which has not allowed them to take advantage of the man advantage. But I think it's really interesting because that's one place where they flourish. And I feel like where power plays are really hard to come by in the playoffs and their opportunities are limited, and considering they haven't been good in that sphere this season, maybe it's something that's a bit of an X factor that we didn't even talk about last episode, but I think it's worth mentioning here.
Yeah, and potentially bias aside, we've looked at the numbers like Jonah mentioned. The hotter team is the Montreal Canadiens at this point in time, and since the Olympic break. So we're all riding with Montreal here.
Not to ramble on too long about the Tampa Habs series, but I know you Habs fans will want to hear this. To me, the difference in the power play for Tampa Bay has to be, what is it, Braden Point's 18 goals in 60 games? We know how good he is on the bumper, and him and Kucherov have not found that chemistry. So if the Habs could shut down Braden Point, like he's been shut down most of the season, I think they could win the series for sure.
We'll move on to the Senators-Hurricanes series, which is one of interest, I think, because of, I don't want to say the uncertainty, but I guess the many outcomes that can come from this series, especially since this is the first series out of the first 3 that we've spoken about where we are in disagreement. I have the Carolina Hurricanes winning that series in 7 games. Jonah has the Carolina Hurricanes winning that series in 6 games. And Liam has the Ottawa Senators winning that series in 6 games. So the team that finished first in the Eastern Conference in the Carolina Hurricanes, and an Ottawa team with 99 points that was really depending on a lot of good play from Linus Ullmark down the stretch. And Liam, you're going to go with the Ottawa Senators here, who are definitely riding Linus Ullmark.
Yeah, I'm going with the hungry Ottawa Senators. They were second to last in the Eastern Conference on January 1st. Since then, they've been one of the hottest teams in the NHL. I feel like they've flown under the radar a little bit, but they're a hungry team. They're a young team. They're very well built. They made some strong deadline moves, and some of the guys they shipped out, like David Perron, were taking up spots from other impactful players that are now in the lineup. I like a fully healthy decor with Tom Chabot, Sanderson. Look, I mean, I am a Habs fan at the end of the day, so I have to not like the Senators, but I like how they match up against this Carolina team that has issues in goal, a lot of inconsistency there. And at the end of the day, I feel like they're easy to expose. They give up big opportunities and teams capitalize on that. Even though they control most of the game, I feel like Ottawa can battle back and actually pull off a win here. They've also not won a series in a long, long time. I feel like they get it done in 6 against the Carolina Hurricanes.
To contradict my prediction of the Canes winning in 6 games, is I could see what you're saying, Liam. To me, it's the the Ottawa Senators remind me of the Florida Panthers the year where they lost in the finals to the Vegas Golden Knights. Like they were playing playoff hockey the entire second half of the season. So they rode with that momentum. They ended up coming back versus the Boston Bruins in round one. So if there is a team to upset there, I could see the Senators for sure doing it because they have been playing playoff hockey for a long time now. So they're bought in, they're playing the right style. And the Canes have kind of been coasting. They've been coasting because they've secured their playoff spot in a weaker division a long, long time ago. So to contradict my prediction, I could see it, Liam. I could see it.
Let me just give you the numbers here. The Ottawa Senators are 16-5-4 since the Olympic break. That brought them up to that pace they needed to get into the playoffs. And like my ideology here in most of my picks is I'm riding with the hottest team with the most consistent goaltending. So I like the Ottawa Senators a lot. I think this is also going to be a dogfight of a series. But I really do like how they've been playing, and that's going to sway my opinion.
I think for me, to kind of round this out and I guess make the pick for our consensus bracket, which does, I guess, go in the sense of the Carolina Hurricanes, is that despite the fact that the Carolina Hurricanes are coasting into the playoffs, I still think that they play that brand of hockey that is so boring and defensive, and they almost just want to trap you in the neutral zone until you can't take it anymore. And I feel like that's something that doesn't necessarily die once it comes to playoffs. And I feel like that they're going to be able to use that to their advantage against a team that doesn't seem to have the playoff experience to be able to get over that hump. It's not to say that it won't be a good series. I have Carolina winning in 7. Jonah, you have them in 6. But I guess for the sake of the bracket and for the sake of the consensus here at Habs Culture, we are going to go with Carolina. We'll move on to the next matchup, which, again, an interesting one, a really, really interesting one with the Battle of Pennsylvania, which returns to playoffs for the first time since 2018. And you have a very young Philadelphia Flyers team against an aging team with the Pittsburgh Penguins, Crosby, Malkin, Letang, Erik Karlsson. But here at Habs Culture, for the third time, we have a consensus, and that is the Pittsburgh Penguins. Jonah, I want to hear from you here on the Penguins because this is an interesting matchup, especially in a very, very weak Metro division, but it's definitely an interesting one to say the least.
I have the Pens in 5, and I love the Flyers' reaction to making the playoffs the other night, where they cheered like they won the Stanley Cup. But that just shows that like they're a young team. They got the job done already. They made the playoffs. They exceeded the expectations. Sidney Crosby hasn't been in the playoffs since 2022, guys. He's still a point per game player. He's still one of the best in the league. I don't see any universe where the Philadelphia Flyers, led by who, end up beating Sidney Crosby in his return to the playoffs. I think that it's a favorable matchup for the Penguins. And due to this playoff format, the Pens have probably the easiest series in the playoffs.
I'm kind of contradicting what I just said before about choosing the hottest team because Philly is 18-7-2 since the Olympic break, and the Penguins are 13-14. So yes, that definitely contradicts what I say. But in the final 6 games where the Pens were playing their full lineup, they were 5-1. So it goes both ways. I just personally also like how Pittsburgh stacks up against Philly. Like you said, not a main driver on Philadelphia who's going to carry that team. And I think there's not really a player in mind who can change the series or take over the series, whereas the Pens have so many players. And I mean, Sidney Crosby alone, I think, is hungry enough just to make one final push and get a series win because he also hasn't won a series since like 2019 or 2018. So it's been a while for the Pens. I think they get it done.
You know who else is hungry? Evgeny Malkin, who hasn't been able to participate in the Olympics. Not in the 4 nations. Russia doesn't participate. So it's been a long time for Malkin to play these big competitive playoff style games. And on top of that, he is a free agent this summer. So he's got a thing in the back of his head. This could be the last time he's in the playoffs for a team that he won the Conn Smythe for 17 years ago now. So I think they have so many guys who are hungry, so many guys that you could say would be the best player on the Philadelphia Flyers. And yeah, I think it could be in 4 games, guys.
Point per game player this season as well.
Yeah, that's Gino.
He's a Russian machine, the second Russian machine behind Alex Ovechkin. We will move over to the Western Conference. Also a very interesting conference. The East, I feel like, was a little bit more set in stone and a little bit more consistent throughout the season, whereas the West was the complete opposite. At the top of the show, we mentioned the fact that the Pacific Division was up for grabs. Obviously, Colorado had that one spot locked up, but the Kings and Utah were kind of battling it out up until the very, very end. And this is a massive difference between these two teams, between the Colorado Avalanche and the LA Kings. Colorado had 121 points. They won the President's Trophy, and they locked that up on April 10th. And they went 3-0 against the LA Kings in their season series. Now, I'm going to throw this to you, Liam. You have Avs in 5. Jonah has Avs in 5. I have Avs in 4. But you also have, and a bit of a spoiler, so I'm sorry, but in your bracket, you do have the Colorado Avalanche winning the Stanley Cup. So I'm curious to know, why are they the team for you, and not only in this matchup, but for the rest of the playoffs?
Well, first of all, to answer the first part of your question, I think they're the deepest team in the league. We've seen that all season. They have an amazing 4 forward lines. Their defense are absolutely stacked. I mean, you have McKinnon, you have Makar, you have guys like Natchez who are putting up 100 points this year. Gabe Landeskog's leadership is back with Colorado on this playoff run. I love how they match up against any team in the NHL. I think they have the most favorable first round matchup in all of the playoffs. So obviously they're going to have to run into either Dallas or Minnesota come round 2. But I think both those teams are going to beat each other up so bad, go to game 7, while Colorado is going to be so well rested after beating LA in maximum 5. This could be, if this could be a 3-game series, it could be. So I love how good Colorado stacks up this season. They've been extremely hot. Also, there is something I mentioned with the President's Trophy curse. Only 8 of 37 President's Trophy winners have won a cup since 1986. We go back to the Boston Bruins season where they had 60 whatever wins and set the NHL record. They lose in the playoffs. We go back to that Tampa year where they lose to Columbus in the first round. And we go back to that year where the Panthers stacked up, I believe 2022, when they picked up Claude Giroux. They picked up our boy Ben Sherratt, and they get bounced round 1 to the Boston Bruins. So there's obviously that to note. Anything can happen in the playoffs, but I think this is a matchup that they have no business losing in. Their goalies are also way more consistent than LA's.
Yeah. I honestly, I'm going to be honest, I had the Avs in 5, and I just gave LA 1 game because I know it'll be Kopitar's last time playing NHL hockey, and I respect him. I've grown up a huge fan of Kopitar, so I hope he gets 1 win, and I hope that wins in LA in front of his home crowd. But guys, you could argue this Avs team's even more stacked than the 2022 team that took Tampa's 3-peat away. They got Kadri back. They have their captain Landeskog back. They have a crazy tandem in Wedgwood and Blackwood. Wedgwood's like, he could win the Vezina this year. No one's really talking about that. And they have guys like Parker Kelly scoring 20 goals, Ross Colton playing a good 2-way game. Nichushkin hasn't even been that good, and he could step up. So I just think they have Sam Malinsky's a 40-point guy. Like, they have so many guys who could step up when they need them. And I didn't even mention they got McKinnon, Natchez, and Makar, who are all at their peak in their prime right now. So yeah, the Avs cakewalk series for them for sure.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else to say about the Avs. The last time when they did win the cup in 2021, 2022, they did finish second in the league standings behind Florida. So I was wondering if they were one of those 8 teams out of the 37 that Liam mentioned. They were not. So again, maybe this is the year that they turn it around. But we'll get into that. We'll start with, maybe, I don't know if you guys agree on this one, but maybe one of the more fun, or maybe the most fun series of the Stanley Cup playoffs, aside from obviously the Habs and Tampa series, but or just by bias, but just, based on bias, but Dallas, Minnesota, a matchup that has been set in stone for a while now, for months, and both sides are absolutely loaded with talent. You have Kaprizov, Boldy on one side. You have Jason Robertson, Wyatt Johnson on the other. You have Quinn Hughes in there. There are some question marks relating to Dallas's health with Miro Heiskanen, who is day to day, but and Rope Hintz, who will be missing the first 2 games of the series. But this is another one where, Liam, you have Minnesota taking the series. Jonah and I have Dallas winning the series. We talked about this a little bit before the episode started, but it is definitely going to be a fun one and a close one. But why Minnesota to you over Dallas?
So this season series was 2-1-1 for Dallas. So it was 2-2. Basically, both teams got 2 wins. The goals for and goals against for each team, 13 and 13. And I'm just going over each of these teams' power plays. The Wild operated at 35% against Dallas, and Dallas operated at 44%. And both PKs, obviously, due to their power plays being so successful, were very unsuccessful. So this is a super, super interesting series. I think a lot of goals will be scored. We already have confirmation that Minnesota is going with Jesper Wallstedt game 1. So very interesting there. Rookie goalie. I think there's a lot of question marks on Dallas' side with the injuries. And I also really want to see Minnesota break this streak of not getting past round 1 in the last 10 years. So I like Minnesota here. I think adding Quinn Hughes makes a massive difference. And the last season, they were right there with Vegas. And I think they should have won that series, if not for a couple goals called back in game 6.
Besides the Habs Tampa series, this is by far the series I'm most excited for. This was actually the only series where I picked how many games it's going to go, and then I picked the winner. Like, I
Fair.
just see these teams are so even. You add Quinn Hughes for Minnesota, so it makes things even spicier. But I had to pick Dallas because just like Colorado, Maverick Bourque, 20 goal scorer, fellow Montreal native. Justin Ritzkovian, 30 points as a rookie quietly. Sam Steele, a good bottom 6 contributor. He could step up in the lineup. Lindell, playing amazing hockey all season. Heiskanen, Robertson, Johns, so many guys where I think Minnesota's more top heavy. But I do agree that some question marks with the Stars with injuries with Rupe Hintz and Matt Duchene maybe hasn't been healthy all season. But yeah, I like Ottinger and net, and that's where I kind of give it to them in that 7th game. I think when it goes 7, I usually pick the goalie I like the most. So I got Dallas in 7, but it could be Minnesota in 7, and I don't see this series going anything but 7.
It's disrespectful to Mike McCarron on the Minnesota Wild.
For me,
hefty price for him.
You're right.
For me, I have I'm big on Dallas this year. I think I'm big on Dallas every year, so maybe it doesn't mean anything. But once again, I think for the reasons that you mentioned, Jonah, there is a lot of depth in that lineup. You mentioned a lot of guys, but a lot of guys that can contribute in different ways. Very versatile team, good in net, good defensively, good up front. I think that they match up better against Minnesota, or they match up very well against Minnesota in the sense that, don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of Joel Eriksson-Ek, but if he's their number 1 center and after that it kind of falls off a cliff a little bit, I'm not as convinced that, come 7 games, that they'll be able to keep pace with a team like Dallas who has that much depth. So again, we're going based off consensus here. I have Dallas in 6. Jonah has them in 7. Liam has Minnesota. We're going to go with Dallas here. Moving on to another fun series, but one that isn't necessarily, wasn't an unanticipated one, considering that, again, that Pacific division was so up for grabs and that wildcard spot was so up for grabs. But you have the first in the Pacific division, Vegas Golden Knights, which to me was always between Anaheim and the Oilers finishing first in the Pacific. But what a stretch by the Vegas Golden Knights to go out and win 7 of their last 8 games. So they went 7-0-1 under John Tortorella. And then you have Utah, it's the first time in their history that they'll be in the playoffs and they'll be hosting their first ever playoff game in Utah in game 3. I'm the only one that went Vegas here, but Jonah, Liam, Utah for you guys. Jonah, I want to hear as to why Utah can make a bit of a splash and can upset the first in the Pacific Division, Vegas Golden Knights.
I think Utah, maybe their record, not so much, but I I know from fantasy hockey, especially, that their top guys really started to heat up at the end. Clayton Keller finished with 88 points. Dylan Gunther hit the 40 goal mark for the first time in his career. Nick Schmaltz, they got a good top six going with Cooley as well. And this stat that no one talks about, John Marino was a plus 42 this season. A plus 42. Mikhail Sergachev was a plus 3. Marino was a plus 42. I can't think off the top of my head who he plays with. Maybe it's Ian Cole. I'm not sure. But if they get that deep pairing matched up versus the Eichel, the heavy, top heavy Golden Knights, and they shut down the top heavy Golden Knights, the first line, the second line, I think Utah could do this. This for me is probably my only bold prediction because Vegas will probably win this. But I don't know. I don't know if Carter Hart is the goal. Like, I haven't seen him in the playoffs since when, guys? Like, his only time was 2020 versus the Habs. I know he was fantastic then, but it's been some time. And again, with their goalie, Vejmelka, I think he could steal some games. And yeah, I do the same thing. When it comes down to 7 games for me, I pick who has the better goalie, and I think Utah does.
And I actually had Vegas losing in 6 to Utah. I think this is really going to come down to goaltending. All season, Vegas's goaltending has been super shaky. Vejmelka has played almost at a Vezina pace. So I love this series for Utah. I think it's a great matchup. I think that 7-1 record is a bit deceiving based on the teams Vegas had to play against. They played the Canucks a few times. They played the Flames a few times. So John Tortorella coming in has obviously shaken the lineup up, and it's worked. But I think this series has upset written all over it. Utah is hungry, just like the Senators are in my mind. They're a young team, lots of talent. If we're looking at the season series, Utah went 2-1, gave up only 5 goals in the 3 games they played Vegas. And if you want an even deeper stat, they did not give up a power play goal to the Vegas Golden Knights in their season series. Ooh. So based on these metrics, I like how Utah's been playing against them. I like how they match up against them. And I want to see Utah move on. I really do.
Yeah. Nate Schmidt, by the way, plus 31, played with John Marino.
That's insane.
It's funny out of everyone that it's him because last year he went off for the Panthers on a quest for his first Stanley Cup and was pretty good for Vegas back in their first season when they made the finals. So that's actually like the perfect guy to find out that could play those big minutes because he's a proven playoff performer.
This side of the bracket is so open. Anyone can move on to the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah.
I think also it's worth noting that down the stretch, and I know you said, Liam, that maybe the 7-1 record isn't necessarily indicative of where they stand as a team this season, but Hart did finish with a .930 save percentage over his last 6 starts after coming back from injury. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on there. Again, the coaching change maybe plays into it. But again, for the consensus bracket, it is the Utah Mammoth that are moving on as the first upset of our bracket challenge, or no, second because of the Habs. So, but I feel like that's the biggest one. So Utah advances there. We'll move on to the Oilers Ducks, which is one that, again, maybe wasn't particularly anticipated because of all that movement in the Pacific, but all of us have Edmonton winning that series. Liam, you have the Oilers in 6. Jonah, you have the Oilers in 5. I have the Oilers in 6 as well. This is Anaheim's first playoff since 2018. And as we know, the Oilers have been to back-to-back Stanley Cup finals and have missed and have lost both times. So they're looking to get back to their 3rd straight Stanley Cup final. But based on that, we do have the Oilers. Now, Liam, what is it about this Oilers team that, again, may not be different than other seasons, but at least gives you the confidence that they can beat a pretty good Anaheim Ducks team this season?
I like the Ducks. I think they're a good team. I think adding John Carlson was a great move. I think they have decent goaltending. But if you look at the stats, Anaheim has let in the most goals out of all the playoff teams in the out of all the teams in the first round with 288. I don't think that bodes well against a team with Connor McDavid. And I know Leon Draisaitl is likely missing game 1, but if you look at their season series, 11 goals scored in the first one, 11 goals scored in the second, and 6 goals in the third. Edmonton took it 2-1. I think there's going to be a lot of goals scored in this series. Obviously, we know the goalie concerns in Edmonton. Who's going to be the guy? Is it Connor Ingram? Is it Tristan Jarry? And we know Darnell Nurse is on the ice as well in the playoffs. So lots of goals. I like the team that has Connor McDavid. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I'm going to keep this short. It's Connor McDavid. The Ducks are a good young team. They'll make it past the first round eventually with Seneca, Carlson, and Gauthier, Lacombe, etc. But McDavid's not letting them get by them. It's happening. It's happening quick. It's happening quick. Yeah.
In Connor McDavid's, I think it was his second or his third year, the Ducks beat him in the playoffs.
Yeah, his second season, 2017. It was that went 7. That went 7.
It was the game 5 or 6 when the Oilers were up 3-0 with 3 minutes left, and the Ducks ended up winning that game in overtime. So I think McDavid has a bit of a chip on his shoulder against this team.
There's a famous Corey Perry or Kessler was like goalie interference. Yeah.
But give me the Oilers.
McDavid's gonna shit on them. I don't like to cuss in here, but McDavid's gonna shit on them.
I'll have to edit that out.
We'll move on to the second round, and again, we're going based off consensus. So we're gonna kind of rip through it because we obviously all have different brackets and different games. But we'll go back to this. We'll start with the second round, but we'll go back to the East. We'll start with our consensus second round matchup: the Buffalo Sabres, who would host the Montreal Canadiens in a pretty fun series that could have potentially been a first round matchup, but we're not going to talk too much about it. The consensus on the podcast, that's the word of the podcast today. I'm sorry, guys, but that's just what it is. The consensus is the Montreal Canadiens to beat the Buffalo Sabres, followed by the Carolina Hurricanes to beat the Pittsburgh Penguins, followed by in the West. Now, I had Dallas, but again, it's the word consensus. It is the Colorado Avalanche that would move on, and it would be the Edmonton Oilers to beat the Utah Mammoth in the second round. 4 remaining teams.
Go ahead. Punch in right here. Utah Colorado would be a nice little rivalry.
Yeah,
just to see that in the Western Conference Final. But of course, we got to see McDavid one more time.
Yeah, one more time. I think. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I don't want to get too much into it, but if there was another team that I was cheering for other than the Montreal Canadiens, it's definitely the Oilers.
Yeah, I feel like that's just been the story for every Habs fan the last few years.
Yeah, exactly. Seriously. We all hopped on the Oilers bandwagon, so it's kind of hard to hop off now. But yeah, if it goes Habs Oilers, Habs in 4 all day.
It is hard to hop off.
We'll stay on the East side now. A Montreal Canadiens, Carolina Hurricanes Eastern Conference Final. Now, that would be an interesting one if we got to that point. Based off the pod's decision, it is the Montreal Canadiens to advance to the Stanley Cup Final. So that's the first time since that 2021 where they went against Tampa. So not only would they have beaten Tampa in the first round this year, but they would return to the Stanley Cup Final against who? Well, it would be the Colorado Avalanche to beat the Edmonton Oilers. And that's an interesting one considering Edmonton's been to 2 straight Stanley Cup finals. But the run for the Canadiens must stop here, unfortunately, where the Colorado Avalanche will win the Stanley Cup. And that will be the 9th, right? The 9th, why am I blanking on what it's called? President's Trophy winner to win the Stanley Cup out of the last 38. So an interesting bracket here based on our consensus picks. But if you want to take a look, that's just what it is. And we'll post it on social media for you guys to check it out. But if there's one underlying story, guys, that you guys want to finish this episode with, any team, any player, I don't know, it could even be the coach. It could be a trainer. I don't care. Mm-hmm. Aside from the Montreal Canadiens here, and I know I'm kind of putting you guys on the spot, but is there something that you guys want to discuss in a little bit more depth before we hop off here?
Yeah, 2 things. 2 small things, even though I might ramble on for a little bit long now. Avs Oilers. I've been waiting to see this since 2022 when the Avs swept them. And even though every game was very close, I think that series is going to be amazing. I know you just got rid of it on the screen, but don't sleep on the Pittsburgh Penguins and Sid the Kid. Like, Crosby, couldn't play in that Olympic gold game. He's, been dying to win. He's This guy's been waiting to win. There's rumors about him being traded because the Pens weren't a playoff team. He got them to the playoffs. If you guys know Sidney Crosby, which we all do, growing up loving Sid the Kid, like he's gonna battle as hard as he could. And the Hurricanes, like you guys said, they don't have the best goaltending. So if Sid the Kid could get it in Rod Brendamore in the Hurricanes' head, I think maybe we might be able to see a Penguins versus Habs series, which would be epic. Penguins Habs, Oilers Avalanche. Give it to us, NHL.
Who's your Conn Smythe winner?
Conn Smythe winner. The Avalanche win. You know what? I have Nick Suzuki winning the Conn Smythe, even though the Avs win the cup. No,
I was gonna say Dobesh wins it.
I was like, my brain went Price for a second. Well, I'm sorry, Habs fans, for bringing that up. But the Conn Smythe winner, it's funny because Nathan McKinnon just came out the other day and said, I don't really care about legacy. I don't care about awards. I don't care about this. Cale Makar won the Conn Smythe in 2022 as like what, a 21-year-old, which is epic, and we'll probably not see that for a while. But I think the Conn Smythe winner would actually be like a Jean-Sebastien Giguère run. Like I think Scott Wedgwood could do it. I think Scott Wedgwood, who's been having an all-time season out of nowhere. I like the storyline, like Wedgwood from backup goalie, AHL goalie to Conn Smythe winner, and then we never hear his name again after this season. I think it would be epic. Give me Scott Wedgwood all day.
Liam, what's your storyline for this postseason?
As much as we've made our bracket, I'm really sensing a year that has like major shifts. Like we're not going to see a Colorado or Edmonton or Dallas in the conference finals. It's going to be teams that we haven't seen, whether that's Ottawa, whether that's Utah, whether that's Minnesota. I think someone's going to make a splash in the playoffs that we don't expect. And sometimes that happens. I mean, look back in 2010, Montreal made it to the conference finals as an 8th seed. We've seen LA win the cup as an 8th seed. We've seen the Bruins beat the number 1 team in the NHL. We've seen Columbus. So I think there's always some unexpected thing that happens. And maybe that's Montreal going all the way to the conference finals. But I really think this is a transition year where we start to see new teams emerge, and some of these older teams that have had so much success, whether that's a Tampa, whether that's Colorado, whether that's a Dallas or Carolina, we're going to see the fall off begin.
I like that take. I have a question for you guys because I feel like it's important to visit this side. If Tampa Bay gets through the Montreal Canadiens, do you guys think that it's like they make the cup finals? I'm curious. Like, do we see Tampa Bay versus Colorado again? Because we never really explored Tampa winning side. So I'm curious, Justin, like, would you think Tampa Bay makes it to the finals in that case?
Absolutely. We spoke about this a bit before, but I feel like whichever team comes out of that matchup, out of that dogfight of a matchup, is going to cement themselves as a true contender to win the Stanley Cup. And I think the same can be said on the other side of the bracket, where we talked heavily about the Dallas and Minnesota matchup, and whoever comes out of that matchup is going to be a force to be reckoned with. And I think that that's going to be the same thing here for that Montreal-Tampa series. 2 teams that were very evenly matched throughout the regular season, 2 teams that finished right next to each other in the standings. I think whichever team comes out of that matchup has a very, very, very good chance of finding themselves in the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah. Like, isn't it crazy to think that like Dallas, Minnesota, let's say Dallas wins because that's our consensus. I couldn't say your favorite word there, but Dallas beats Minnesota, and then they would have to probably play Colorado, and then there's a chance where they have to play Edmonton after. Like that's just nuts.
It's a ridiculous path.
Yeah, it's just nuts.
And that's why it's hard to see any of those teams winning, because they're just going to be absolutely drained. There's no way they're going to be able to take on a team in the finals after going through, whether Dallas or Minnesota wins, plus Colorado, plus an Edmonton team with McDavid. Like, it's just impossible.
Yeah.
I think the matchups that are really interesting to me that maybe we didn't put a lot of emphasis on, and I guess this is my narrative for the 2025, 2026 playoffs, is that I don't think we're attributing enough value or enough attention to the Oilers and Vegas, just because I feel like it's one of those years where anything is up for grabs. And it kind of goes a bit against what you said, Liam, but also plays directly into what you said, because I feel like the expectations for the Oilers to win the cup, let alone get to the cup final, are so low. And everyone's kind of counting out Vegas just because of how poor they were until the last 7 games of the season. But I feel like those are sometimes the teams that kind of turn things on and then become, when they're at their best, they're some of the best teams in the league. So I guess my narrative here is to look out for the teams that are being maybe not talked about enough, especially from that Pacific Division.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. And I think we've seen that in the past as well, whether it's like the St. Louis Blues, whether it's the Capitals. There's a lot of teams that are going into the playoffs with zero expectation, and that sometimes removes the pressure. And I think that's where we see the president's trophy curse come in, because there's just so much expectation on these teams to just annihilate their opponents. But, Colorado gets to win the President's Trophy and then either face the 2nd or 3rd seed team in their conference and the league as a whole. So it's not going to be easy for definitely that side of the Western Conference.
For those of you that made it this far, thank you once again for listening. Again, check out all the socials. We are very, very active at this point in time. And also, if you did make it this far, I'll take a second to mention live post-game shows coming up after each and every Montreal Canadiens playoff game, whether it's 2 out of the 3 of us or 1 out of the 3 of us or 3 of the 3 of us. There will be post-game shows. So those are always fun. Comments and interactions, which are always fun with other Habs fans or non-Habs fans. So make sure to tune into those. But other than that, enjoy the first game of the playoff, or the first day of the playoffs on Saturday, and obviously enjoy that Montreal Canadiens game that starts at 5:45 Eastern time in Tampa. So we'll wrap it up there. Thanks once again for listening, and we'll catch you guys next time.